I'll tell you something nobody in the Caldwell family ever expected, that the woman who almost broke me would be the same woman who handed me the match to burn it all down. But let me start where it really started. Not at the birthday party, not at the pink box, not even at the wedding. Let me start the morning I found the receipt. My name is Raina Caldwell, born Raina Morales, raised in a two-bedroom apartment in Riverside, California, by a mother who worked double shifts at Cedars-Sinai and a father who taught eighth-grade history and believed with every cell in his body that dignity was not something you earned, it was something you protected. I carried that with me when I got my MBA from USC. I carried it when I walked into the lobby of Caldwell Capital Group at 28 years old as their new Director of Strategic Acquisitions. I carried it when Brennan Caldwell, tall, dark-suited, third-generation wealth dripping off him like a second skin, leaned against the elevator door and said, "You're either the new hire or you're very lost." "Neither," I said. "I'm the one who's going to double your Q3 returns." He married me 14 months later. The Caldwell family lived in a world that looked like a magazine spread, but felt like a chess game where nobody told you the rules until you'd already lost a piece. There was Brennan's mother, Diane Caldwell, Newport Beach, always in Chanel, always smiling that particular smile that meant she was calculating something. She had a way of complimenting you that landed like a backhanded slap. "Rainer, you wore that same dress to the holiday gala? It's so brave how you repeat outfits." There was Brennan's sister, Sky Caldwell Harmon, married to a tech founder named Derek who she clearly despised, but the prenup kept her loyal. Sky was the kind of beautiful that had grown mean over time, like fruit that looked perfect but had been sitting on the counter 2 days too long. And then there was Brennan's grandmother, Eleanor Caldwell, 81 years old, who lived in a Tudor estate in Pasadena, wore pearls every single day, and said maybe 12 words at any family gathering, but every single one of them landed like a verdict. Nobody crossed Eleanor. Nobody except, it seemed, Diane, who had spent 30 years convincing everyone that Eleanor was just a sweet old woman with money, not the actual architect of the Caldwell Empire. And nobody, not Brennan, not Sky, not any of the cousins or in-laws or family lawyers, knew that Eleanor and I had been having Sunday afternoon tea together for the past 2 years. That was our secret. Brennan and I had a daughter named Maya. Maya Caldwell was 9 years old, and she was the most spectacular human being I had ever encountered. She had Brennan's height genes kicking in early, and my mother's laugh, loud, unashamed, filling every room. She loved marine biology, hated math homework, and had once corrected her third-grade teacher about the migratory patterns of blue whales so thoroughly that the teacher had to look it up. Maya was perfect, and that is exactly why what happened at her birthday party cut so deep. The party was held at our home in Los Feliz, a renovated Spanish colonial that I had spent 2 years designing, every tile and archway chosen deliberately. We'd hired a small catering team, had fairy lights strung across the backyard, and Maya had requested an ocean theme, because of course she had. 20 kids from her school, family. The Caldwells arrived as they always did, slightly late and slightly overdressed, like they were doing you a favor by showing up at all. Diane had a pink-wrapped box under her arm. Maya's eyes lit up when she saw it. I noticed something about the box immediately. It was light, too light. I'd been trained by years of hosting these people to watch everything, catalog everything, because the Caldwells communicated in subtext, and gift-giving was practically a language. But I said nothing. It was Maya's birthday. I had made myself a promise. Today is hers. The gift opening happened after cake. Maya, being Maya, thanked each person before she even opened anything. She made eye contact, said specific things. "Aunt Sky, I know you were really busy," with a kind of emotional intelligence that still astonished me. She got to Diane's box last. The pink paper came off in one pull. Inside was a white cardboard box, the kind you get from a department store. Maya opened it. She looked in. She looked up at her grandmother with confused eyes. "Grandma Diane, it's empty." The backyard went quiet in that way that happens when something has gone wrong, but nobody wants to be the first to acknowledge it. Diane smiled. And I want you to understand that this smile was practiced. She had planned this. She tilted her head with the precision of a woman who had rehearsed this exact moment in her bathroom mirror. "You were a bad girl this year, Maya Bean," she said, her voice light, conversational, like she was commenting on the weather. "I talked to your father about it. He agreed. This year, you don't get a gift." 20 children went silent. Maya's face. God, Maya's face. She was 9. She was trying so hard not to cry. Her jaw was tight and her bottom lip had disappeared behind her top teeth, and she was staring at that empty box like if she looked at it long enough, it would fill itself up. From across the table, I heard Sky let out a single short laugh, the kind you do when you're confirming something, co-signing it. My body temperature dropped about 10 degrees. I looked at Brennan. He was looking at his phone. He was looking at his phone. Every year, every slight, every backhanded comment, every Christmas where Diane had given my nieces Tiffany and given Maya a book of puzzles, every single moment I had swallowed, smiled through, excused, contextualized, collapsed into one singular point behind my sternum. But before I could open my mouth, Eleanor stood up. Eleanor Caldwell was not a dramatic woman. She did not stand up at things. She did not make scenes. In 30 years of family events, I had never seen her rise from a seated position to address a room. But she stood up. She was wearing her pearls. Her posture was extraordinary. She looked directly at Diane, and when she spoke, her voice was quiet in the way that very powerful things are often quiet. "Diane," she said, "you will apologize to this child, right now, in front of everyone here." Diane blinked, actually blinked, like a computer trying to reboot. "Mother Eleanor, I was just—" "You were humiliating a 9-year-old girl at her own birthday party," Eleanor said, "and you did it deliberately. And your son," she looked at Brennan, who had finally put down his phone, "sat there and let you." The air had the quality of a room before lightning. "I want you both to know," Eleanor said, still quiet, still devastating, "that I see exactly what this family has become, and I am ashamed of it." She sat back down. She picked up her lemonade. She looked at me, just for a second, just a glance, and in that glance was everything. "Hold on," her eyes said. "I've got you." I took Maya inside. I held her in the kitchen while she finally let herself cry. Quietly, the way she'd learned to cry in this family, contained and careful even in her grief, which broke my heart more than anything. "It's okay, baby," I told her, which was a lie, which she probably knew was a lie, but which she needed to hear anyway. "Was I bad this year, Mom?" I asked. "No," I said. "You were extraordinary this year. You were extraordinary every year. Don't you ever let anyone make you question that. Not anyone." She pulled back and looked at me with Brennan's eyes and my mother's stubbornness. "Is Grandma Diane a mean person?" I thought about what my father would say, about dignity, about not teaching your child to hate. "She's a very unhappy person," I said, "and sometimes unhappy people do mean things." Maya considered this with the gravity of a marine biologist. "That's sad for her," she said. I pressed my lips to her forehead. "Yeah, baby, it really is." That night, after the guests left and the caterers packed up and Maya was asleep, I sat on the edge of my bed and I thought about the receipt. I should tell you about the receipt. 4 months before the birthday party, I'd been going through our shared filing cabinet looking for the deed to a property Brennan and I were refinancing. It was a Tuesday. He was in San Francisco for a conference. Between a folder of car insurance documents and our mortgage paperwork, I found a receipt from the Pendry Hotel in downtown San Diego. 2 nights, suite. Dated the same weekend Brennan had told me he was in Chicago for a client dinner. I sat on the floor of our home office for a long time. I'm a strategic acquisitions director. My entire job is pattern recognition, seeing the shape of something before all the pieces are visible, reading the room before anyone's spoken. I am, professionally, very good at understanding when I'm being deceived. I had been ignoring the signs for at least a year, maybe longer. The late nights I'd explained away as work culture, the slight emotional distance I'd reframed as him being stressed, the way he'd started getting up at 6 a.m. to answer emails when he'd never been a morning person in 10 years of marriage. I picked myself up off the floor, put the receipt back exactly where I'd found it, and went to make coffee. I did not confront him. I called Eleanor. "He's having an affair," I said, sitting in Eleanor's sunroom in Pasadena the following Sunday. Eleanor poured tea. She did not look surprised. "How long have you known?" I asked. "I suspected," she said carefully, "for about 8 months. And you didn't tell me?" "I needed to know what you were going to do before I decided how to help you," she said. "I'm sorry, Raina, that may seem cold, but this family has eaten women alive for 3 generations. I wasn't going to help you unless you were ready to fight back instead of just survive." I looked at her. "I'm ready," I said. Eleanor nodded once. Then she opened the drawer of the side table next to her and pulled out a folder. "Then let's talk about what I know," she said, "and what you're going to need." What Eleanor knew was considerable. Diane had been managing the Caldwell Family Trust for 12 years, with what Eleanor called creative accounting practices that her personal attorney had only recently confirmed were, in fact, fraud. Small amounts redirected, real estate transactions that didn't fully appear in the books, a sister account in Delaware that didn't officially exist. Brennan knew. Skye knew. Eleanor had not known until 8 months ago, when her accountant flagged an anomaly. She had been building a paper trail since then, quietly, in the way that only someone with patience and absolute certainty can do. "Your husband is having an affair," Eleanor said. "My daughter-in-law has been stealing from the trust I built with my husband for 50 years. My grandson, who I love, has been complicit in both." She folded her hands on her lap. "What do you want, Raina?" "I want out," I said, "and I want Maya protected, and I want every single one of them to understand what they lost." Eleanor almost smiled. "Good," she said. "Then here's what we're going to do." The plan took 4 months. 4 months during which I went home to Brennan every night and made dinner and helped Maya with homework and laughed at his jokes. 4 months during which I hired my own private investigator, a woman named Deb, referral from Eleanor, who had done this for 30 years and had a face like a CPA and the instincts of a hawk. 4 months during which I quietly moved my own assets, the ones I'd brought into the marriage, the ones I'd earned independently, the investments I'd made that Brennan had never really paid attention to because he'd always slightly underestimated me, into a separate account that my own attorney had set up. 4 months during which I learned the name of the woman Brennan was sleeping with, a 34-year-old named Cassandra, who worked in acquisitions at a competing firm and had, ironically, been trying to poach clients from Caldwell Capital for 2 years. The professional betrayal genuinely impressed me. Even in his infidelity, Brennan had found a way to mix business with pleasure. 4 months during which Eleanor quietly, legally, permanently restructured the family trust in a way that upon her death or voluntary transfer would leave Diane and Brennan with exactly what the law required and not $1 more. She had a new beneficiary. Her name was Maya Caldwell. I'm telling you all of this in retrospect, of course, because when you're inside it, when you're living it day to day, it doesn't feel like a plan. It feels like breathing underwater. It feels like smiling at a table where the food is poisoned and you're the only one who knows it. It feels like being an actress in a movie where you wrote the script, but nobody else has seen it yet. The birthday party was not planned. I want to be clear about that. Diane's empty box was a Diane special, spontaneous cruelty dressed up as principal. But it accelerated the timeline. Because watching Maya hold that empty box, watching Brennan look at his phone, watching Skye laugh, something in me that had been very carefully tamped down for 4 months simply ignited. I was done waiting. 3 weeks after the birthday party, I filed for divorce. I did not tell Brennan it was coming. I did not warn Diane. I came home on a Wednesday evening with Maya at my mother's house in Riverside. Because I had planned this part, I wasn't entirely spontaneous. And I sat down across from Brennan at our kitchen table and I set down the papers. He looked at them for a long moment. Then he looked at me. Raina, I know about Cassandra, I said. I know about the Pendry. I know about the Marriott in San Jose. I know about the hotel bar in Austin where you met her at a conference 2 years ago. I have photographs, Brennan. I have texts retrieved from a backup you didn't know existed. I have everything. The color left his face in a slow tide. I also know about your mother's Delaware account, I said. I know about the Westfield property that was listed at one price and sold at another, and the difference went somewhere it wasn't supposed to go. My attorney knows too. So does the attorney for the trust. How did you? Your grandmother loves me, I said simply. She always has. You never really understood why, and that was your first mistake. He put his hands flat on the table. I could see him trying to recover, trying to find the angle, trying to be Brennan Caldwell, who always found the angle. We can work this out, he said. Raina, whatever you think you know, I don't think anything, I said. I know. And what I know is that I am leaving, that Maya is coming with me, and that if this divorce is anything other than cooperative and generous, the Delaware account goes to the DA's office and I hold a press conference. He stared at me. You wouldn't. Brennan, I said quietly, your grandmother humiliated our daughter at her 9th birthday party, and you looked at your phone. You've been lying to me for at least 2 years. You let your mother treat me like a guest in a hotel I owned for our entire marriage. I picked up my purse. Underestimating me was your hobby. It was everyone's hobby in this family. I let you have it. I'm done letting you have it. I walked to the door. Your attorney will be hearing from mine tomorrow morning. I'd recommend not calling your mother until you've talked to legal, though knowing Diane, she's going to need her own lawyer soon anyway. I drove to my mother's house in Riverside. I sat in Maya's temporary bedroom and watched her sleep. I cried exactly once, silently, for the marriage I thought I was building, for the man I thought Brennan was before I knew better, for the decade of small erosions I hadn't stopped. Then I wiped my face. I had work to do. The divorce took 7 months. Brennan, to his credit, or maybe to his attorney's credit, was relatively cooperative. The photographs and the hotel records and the backed-up text had a clarifying effect on his negotiation strategy. Maya stayed with me in a rental in Silver Lake while the house sold. She chose her own bedroom paint color, a blue so deep it was almost navy, the color of the deep ocean, of course, and we got a dog, a ridiculous fluffy rescue named Plankton who had 3 legs and an attitude problem and whom Maya loved with a devotion that was frankly humbling. My mother came every Sunday and made pozole and sat in my kitchen and didn't ask too many questions, which is its own kind of profound love. I went back to work full-time, not at Caldwell Capital. I was done with that chapter, but at a boutique investment firm in Culver City that had been trying to recruit me for 2 years. The offer they put on the table made me laugh the first time I saw it. I accepted it the next day. I was, professionally, thriving. Diane was not thriving. The Delaware account, once Eleanor's attorney submitted the formal documentation to the trust's board, triggered an audit. The audit revealed 17 years of redirected funds, not just 12. The sum, when calculated across all the transactions, was significant enough that it crossed several thresholds that mattered legally. Diane hired 3 attorneys. She cycled through 2 of them within a month. Skye, in a move that surprised everyone except me and Eleanor, immediately lawyered up separately and began cooperating with investigators in exchange for reduced liability. Blood runs thick, but apparently not thicker than the prospect of losing Derek's money in a civil suit. Brennan lost his position as managing director at Caldwell Capital because when the trust restructuring revealed the full picture of what had been happening, the board, who had their own exposure to manage, moved fast. He found work eventually at a much smaller firm in Seattle, which was probably the right distance. Cassandra did not go to Seattle with him, which I found out through Deb, who found out because Deb found out everything. I felt nothing about this except a passing recognition that some things are simply not built to last. Eleanor called me in October, 8 months after the birthday party, on a Tuesday afternoon. "Come to tea," she said. "Bring Maya." We drove to Pasadena. Eleanor was in the sunroom, as always, pearls, extraordinary posture, lemonade and tea both on the table because she'd learned that Maya preferred lemonade. Maya sat next to Eleanor on the small sofa and told her at length about a documentary she'd watched about giant squid. Eleanor listened with complete attention, asking intelligent follow-up questions, which was one of the things I had always loved about her. She took children entirely seriously. After Maya went outside to explore the garden, Eleanor and I sat quietly for a moment. "Are you well?" she asked. "Getting there," I said honestly. "Good." She set down her teacup. "I've finalized the trust documentation. Maya's portion is protected in a separate vehicle that cannot be touched by anyone currently in the family or any future litigation. It transfers to her at 30, with an educational provision available before that." She paused. "I want you to know that I am sorry, Raina. I should have said something sooner. To Brennan, to Diane, to all of them. I watched them make your life small, and I was too cautious." I looked at this 81-year-old woman who had built an empire and outlived a husband and raised children who had disappointed her, and I thought about what my father had said about dignity. "You stood up at her birthday party, in front of 20 kids and the whole family. You stood up." Eleanor looked out at the garden where Maya was crouching next to a flower bed, examining something close to the ground with the focus of a scientist. "She looks like you," Eleanor said quietly, "the way she holds herself." I blinked hard. "She does, doesn't she?" There's a thing that happens when you've been fighting for a long time, and then the fight is over. Not a party, not a celebration, more like the particular silence after a storm, when you step outside and the air is clean and strange and everything is very still. I sat with that silence a lot in the months after the divorce finalized. I was 39 years old. I had a daughter who was 10 and already talking about studying at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. I had a job that challenged me in all the right ways. I had a ridiculous 3-legged dog. I had my mother's Sunday pozole and my father's voice in my head, reminding me that dignity was not earned, it was protected. I had lost things, too. The version of my life I had planned, the family I'd thought I was marrying into, a decade of energy spent in a house where I'd never fully been welcomed. But here's the thing about loss that nobody tells you. It has weight, but weight is just gravity, and gravity means you're grounded, and grounded means you can move. At Maya's 10th birthday party, held at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach because Maya had requested nothing less, there was a moment I keep coming back to. We'd rented out the jellyfish exhibit for 2 hours, 20 kids completely losing their minds over glowing jellyfish in the dark. My mother was there, and my sister and her husband, and my best friend Camille, who had driven down from Oakland for the occasion and immediately befriended every child in the room. Eleanor was there too. She'd asked to come, quietly, and I'd said yes without hesitation, because Eleanor had earned her place in this story. She sat in the corner of the jellyfish room in her pearls, watching Maya lead a group of her friends through a self-guided explanation of why jellyfish don't have brains, and she was smiling in a way I hadn't seen on her face before, unguarded, genuinely delighted. Maya noticed Eleanor in the corner and broke away from her friends and crossed the room and hugged her, just like that, easy as breathing. Eleanor hugged her back. I stood there in the blue glow of the jellyfish tanks, in the middle of a decade ending and a new one beginning, surrounded by the sound of children laughing, and I thought, this This is what was on the other side. Not revenge, exactly, though the justice part was real and it mattered, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. But this room, this light, this kid who knew her own worth and moved through the world without apology, this was the thing Diane's empty box had never been able to touch. You can't give someone an empty box and take something from them that was never in a box to begin with. A few months later, I got a message from a journalist at a business publication who was writing a profile on women in West Coast investment and had been given my name by 3 separate sources. Would I be willing to talk? I read the message twice. I thought about the woman I'd been 10 years ago, walking into the Caldwell lobby, ready to prove something to a room full of people who'd already decided what I was. I thought about Brennan looking at his phone. I thought about an empty pink box. I thought about Eleanor standing up. I wrote back. I said yes. The profile ran in March. The headline was The Strategist. The photo they used was one I'd taken at the office, standing at a window, looking out at the city, half turned toward the camera. I was wearing the dress Diane had once called brave for repeating. I repeated it on purpose. My father called when it published, which he almost never did for things like this. He just said, "Mija, I'm proud of you," and then asked if he wanted him to bring tamales on Sunday, and I said yes. Obviously yes, bring the tamales. Maya read the profile at the kitchen table over breakfast and looked up at me with those ocean blue, focused eyes. "Mom," she said, "you're kind of a big deal. Don't tell Plankton, he already has an ego problem." She laughed, loud, unashamed, filling every room. My mother's laugh, mine.